Hello everyone, Richard here, and today we're going to be discussing two of the most dangerous enemies in Killing Floor 2, the QuarterPound and Fleshpound. For the sake of brevity and simplicity, I may refer to QuarterPounds as quarters, and Fleshpounds as FPs, and both of them as a collective as pounds. While they are different from each other in some notable ways, the ways in which we approach them are going to be quite similar. Both are considered large Zeds, and as such are very durable, very powerful, and perhaps worst of all, very unpredictable, at least when compared to other Zeds. Before we dive into their behavior, it's important to understand how durable they are, and what are some of the best and worst weapons for dealing with them. Like the Scrake and bosses, a Pound's health will vary based on the number of players alive when he spawns, and the difficulty level. QuarterPounds are interesting when compared to other Zeds, as they have a rather small gap between their head and body health, typically a difference of around 30% on hard and above. While they are relatively trivial threats on lower difficulties, on Suicidal and Hell on Earth, they become significantly more durable, meaning you will have to invest much more firepower in order to eliminate them. They have 4 possible hit zones: the head, chest core, gauntlets, and body, with the head and chest providing a 1.1x multiplier, the gauntlets a 0.2x multiplier, and damage to anywhere else in the body being unmodified. While a QuarterPound may not be technically vulnerable to any one damage type, he will take normal damage from microwave attacks, explosives, grenade duds, freeze attacks, and EMP. All other damage types will receive a noticeable damage reduction, with fire and toxic damage being hit the hardest. Fleshpounds, by contrast, have significantly more body health than head health, meaning that targeting their torso with anything but explosives will yield less than stellar results. On lower difficulties, the body will typically have twice as much HP as the head, while on higher difficulties it comes closer to tripling its head health. Fleshpounds do share the same damage zones as QuarterPounds, with the head and chest being their weak spots. Fleshpounds are, however, much more vulnerable to explosives than QuarterPounds, with explosive damage receiving a 1.5x multiplier. Fleshpounds are damage neutral to microwave, freeze, grenade dud, and EMP attacks. They are also resistant to the same attacks as the QuarterPound, however with a steeper penalty against SMGs, assault rifles, slashing, fire, and toxic attacks. Pounds are very easily affected by EMP, stun, and freeze, so the Berserker, SWAT, and Sharpshooter's grenades are all very effective incapacitation methods for scoring some easy Flesh and QuarterPound kills. It is important to note that they are almost immune to incapacitation when enraged, which can be visually distinguished by the Pound's yellow lights turning a deep red. While they can be fire panicked, this is often only useful in dire situations, as it's much easier to score headshots when their arms are not flailing about, blocking potential hits. Pounds will usually spawn in a calm state, although they can spawn sprinting on Suicidal and Hell on Earth. Otherwise, they will walk at a quick pace towards the nearest player until they become enraged. Enragement can occur from one of two ways: players dealing 276 points of damage to the Pound, or after the completion of his frustration timer, which will last 10 to 14 seconds after spotting a player. Once the Pound is enraged, they will sprint very quickly towards the target player and not stop until one of two conditions is met. Either the Pound hits a player, or the Pound loses line of sight of a player for 30 seconds. Once the Pound is calm, it will reset both the damage and frustration rage triggers. Enraged Pounds, as previously stated, are not only very fast, but resistant to incapacitation, such as EMP, stun, and panic. This means that unless you can quickly bring the Pound down, it is usually much easier to let him strike you, let him cool down, and then incapacitate him. Some important notes about Pounds regarding rage include that they will mulch smaller Zeds that get in their way, including QuarterPounds. If a Pound gets enraged within striking distance of a player, they will forego their becoming enraged animation and attempt to immediately land a hit on the player. This is important as their becoming enraged animation will leave them vulnerable to headshots for a brief window and can make the difference between a flawless victory and getting away by the skin of your teeth. Pounds are also able to block attacks, which will reduce most incoming damage by 10% and reduce afflictions and in-cap power by 80%. Thankfully, blocking is disabled when a Pound is enraged, meaning they will take damage as normal. QuarterPounds are unique in that their default walk speed is almost a fast jog, making them a very immediate threat once they spawn. In addition, they will typically spawn in groups rather than by themselves. Now that we have a general idea of how pounds behave and what they are vulnerable to, we can begin to formulate some strategies in order to eliminate them. Before we get into perk-specific tactics, there are some general tips that are, for the most part, perk neutral. First is that every perk with a little bit of practice should be able to parry a pound's attack using their knife. While most of the damage will still get through, in many cases it can be the difference between life and death. Second is that pounds should be a priority target for the team, meaning in most situations a good chunk of the team's firepower should be devoted to eliminating the threat quickly and, most importantly, cleanly. Finally, do not engage a pound prematurely. Waiting for an incapacitation from a sharpshooter or SWAT can, at the very least, allow you to score some easy hits on a helpless target. In the event that incapacitations are not available or impractical, then try your best to stack the deck in your favor. On lower difficulties and with a smaller player count, pounds shouldn't be too troublesome of an enemy, and the following recommendations will mostly apply to large and high difficulty games. However, these tips will still make dealing with them a much simpler affair. Certain perks are just inherently better at dealing with big Zeds. These would include the Sharpshooter, Gunslinger, Demolitionist, Support, and arguably the Berserker depending on the loadout. Perks like the Commando, SWAT, and Survivalist are serviceable and can definitely handle them in a pinch, but shouldn't be your go-to perks for dealing with pounds. The Field Medic and Firebug, on the other hand, are probably the last two perks that should be soloing a pound. In addition, Poison and Fire Panic can cause dedicated big Zed killers like Sharpshooters and Gunslingers to miss typically easy headshots. The Sharpshooter and Gunslinger have it pretty straightforward. Weapons like the M99, Railgun, Desert Eagles, 500 Magnums, and AF 2011s can all easily put down a pound in the right hands. In addition, the Sharpshooter also has access to the FAL and Mark 14, which can kill Fleshpounds rather easily, especially when paired with InCap. The Demolitionist's RPG-7 is the absolute bane of pounds, and in most cases a single rocket can obliterate a QuarterPound with only a follow-up rocket or a stick of C4 required for a full-size Fleshpound. On some of the easier games, the M32 or Seeker 6 can be effective while still being an economically viable option for handling trash. The support also has a fairly broken trick up its sleeve, the Doomstick, which is capable of stumbling even a raging Fleshpound. This utility, along with some very powerful complementary weapons like the M4, AA-12, and Boomstick, make the support a very simple solution to all your Fleshpound problems. Finally, the Berserker has a few good tools that it can use to deal with pounds. The most simple and direct being the Battle Axe, which with only a handful of heavy attacks can easily split a pound in two. Players seeking an approach with more finesse might like the upgraded Nailgun in combination with a parry from another melee weapon. Make sure to aim for the head for the best results, especially on Hell on Earth. For those wanting an all-in-one suite, the Static Strikers are also a very capable weapon at incapacitating and eliminating pounds, thanks to the additional EMP incap that the heavy attacks incur. While the SWAT was clearly not meant for dealing with pounds, a stun grenade can quickly bring an unenraged pound to a halt, leaving him vulnerable not only to your arsenal but your teammates as well. The Chris, being the highest DPS weapon for the SWAT, is the most optimal choice for dealing with pounds. Commandos, thanks to their huge arsenal, also have some options for dealing with flesh and QuarterPounds, namely the FNFAL, but the Scar H is also an adequate substitute if the need arises. Just remember that his high explosive grenades, while very effective against pounds on easier games, quickly lose effectiveness on higher difficulties. Survivalist in its current form can be easily configured to handle any and all enemies. For dealing with pounds, the Railgun and RPG-7 will yield the best results. Alternatively, you can also play support with another Demo or Sharpshooter, as even the toughest Fleshpounds should be no match against a tandem pair of RPGs. The Field Medic, while not suited to directly combating a pound in team games, can play a supporting role in bringing them down. Not only can they heal wounded players, but they can also provide buffs increasing other players' damage, resistance, and movement speed, all of which go a long way when fighting flesh and quarter pounds. Firebugs, at least as of making this video, can often cause more harm than good. However, the microwave gun is probably the safest way of dealing with Fleshpounds, especially on higher difficulties. Not only are Pounds not a big fan of microwave damage, the alt-fire attack can also push them back, and, if timed correctly, can prevent them from ever landing a hit. Regardless of what perk you play, Pounds in general can be a very annoying foe, and it will take some practice before you can really get a handle on them. Their movements and AI are a bit more complex than most Zeds, meaning you'll have to play flexible if they show up en masse. Isolating and immobilizing Pounds is usually the best strategy for dealing with them. However, they do have a very annoying tendency to spawn when you are least ready to fight them. Also remember that killing Pounds should be a team effort if possible, as this will make bringing them down much easier. Thank you very much for watching. Join us next time when we take a look at the Siren and Bloat. Let me know what questions you have about the Fleshpounds in the comments section below, or feel free to subscribe so you never miss a guide. But until next time, happy hunting.